Yo, what is going on YouTube? I am Germ here, and I know it might not look like it from what's on the screen right now, but today we're going to be talking a lot about Evil Geniuses, some of their top players who are now obviously going to be on the move after they have officially announced that Vulcan inspired someday and FBI will not be returning to the team in the summer split. It seems like just Jojo Puna is going to be sticking around, but a lot of this news is going down in this thread from LEC Wooloo right here. But we can also talk about this story first. Wooloo tweeted out just a little bit ago, sources, EMEA finalist jungler Peach has reached a verbal agreement with Excel as he'll be transferred from Unicorns of Love to the LEC team. Jungler Linkus was also considered at first for the position. So, obviously, Excel had Xerxes for this last couple splits. How I want to say the first half of 2023 really was broken into two splits with the new LEC format. A lot of people coming into the year were like, okay, Xerxes, why the heck is Excel doing this? Xerxes kind of sucks. He's kind of washed, kind of old news. I don't understand why they'd be going with him, especially when they have, Odo and Vito and they have all this talent. Why Xerxes? But then some people came out and were like, oh, you casuals don't know what you're talking about. Xerxes was actually really good last year. He just played on a shit team, blah, 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 blah. And then it turned out, well, hey, Xerxes actually just wasn't that good. And all the freaking, Giga Galaxy brain intellectuals saying, oh, you guys don't even know what you're watching. Watch one Astralis game and you'll see how good Xerxes is, blah, 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 blah. That didn't really pan out. Xerxes, turns out, wasn't all that good, and they're looking to replace him after, and this is not to put all of Excel's blame on Xerxes, it's just, hey, they probably should have went out and got a different jungler. Excel finished dead last, 10th place in back-to-back splits. They're making a change. Is Peach going to come in and be a beast? I don't really know. With ERL players, you just never know. It's hit and miss sometimes. He's got a chance to be better than Xerxes. He's got a chance to be worse than Xerxes. He's got a chance to, not even matter what he does, and Excel just be kind of a really, really bad and disappointing team once again. Who knows? But I'm sure Excel's going to be making some other changes. I'm sure they're going to be hopefully ready to go for the summer split. We'll have to wait and see. But in this thread, we got some other news. We had this guy, Crow LOL. He's saying, info on Vulcan, my dear sheep, and the percent chance of seeing it in LEC. What can it be? And Wooloo, I don't know, I was about to say Vulcan, and Wooloo replies with this, in my opinion, the LCS is more likely, as people have Google Translated. I Google Translated this as well. This is what it says. I believe this is French. Wooloo is saying that Vulcan to the LCS is most likely at this point. Now, we know that Vulcan signed with that EU talent agency, and people were like, oh, this must mean he's going to EU, and then he's in Berlin, probably meeting with this talent agency, and he's hanging out with Niski, and Niski saying, welcome to the LEC, and blah, blah, blah. But especially when he signed with the talent agency, people were like, oh, wow, he must be coming to the LEC. And at the time, I put out a video where I said, hey, guys, this could mean he's coming to the LEC, but it doesn't have to mean that. Just because his talent agency or whatever, player agency, is based out of Europe, doesn't mean they don't have connections probably all over the world, or doesn't mean they can't also negotiate with teams in the LCS or anywhere else in the world. That does not put them solely in a box of EU. Now, it could mean he is going to consider European options. It could mean he's using his talent agency to get in connection with European teams and maybe negotiate and help things with that. Who knows? But it doesn't mean he has to be going to the LEC. The LCS could still be an option, and as Wooloo says here, the LCS is more likely. Does not mean the LCS is 100%. That also does not mean he's not talking to LEC teams and considering them for the future. But also, we always know that this mini offseason between spring and summer split is really tough. Most teams already have their rosters ready to go for the summer split. Most teams already have their players in place. Most teams aren't able to just make some big, huge change. The only teams who are able to make big, huge changes are teams who had issues in the spring. Teams who maybe their support sucked. Maybe their team sucked and they're looking to shape things up. Teams who were successful in the spring split or in the winter and spring splits aren't usually going to go out and make a huge change, even when a big name and a very, very successful name like Vulcan becomes available. So what I will also say is, just because he signed with this talent agency doesn't mean he's going to the LEC. I would also say just because Vulcan stays in the LCS for 2023 for the summer split does not mean he couldn't be looking at a move to the LEC headed into 2024, which honestly I think is maybe even pretty likely at this point, especially depending on how the LCS continues to, pull resources and pull money out of their teams, and the future starts to look a little bleaker and bleaker, and the LEC future starts to look brighter and brighter, especially comparatively. Who knows? I think that could be very, very possible because I think when teams have a full offseason to really consider Vulcan, some of the top teams are going to come to the conclusion that Vulcan could definitely help them out, and Vulcan might decide that, hey, this team is going to make the most sense. But again, if Vulcan is most likely to be staying in the LCS, we need to start looking at some of his potential landing spots, and I really think there's only a couple because, again, Vulcan, one of the best players in LCS history, probably the best support in LCS history. So he's going to play on a pretty good team. He's going to need to make at least some amount of money. He's not going to go to some bottom-dwelling team, and this only gives us so many options. We have, obviously, him coming off EG. He's not going to EG. We have 100 Thieves with Busio, obviously, in place. Could CLG or Golden Guardians be an option? I really think this is kind of the bottom of the bottom potential opportunities for Vulcan. Maybe. I think seeing Vulcan on CLG or Golden Guardians would be interesting. I think it would obviously make them a lot better. I think that would maybe even make them, championship contenders like Golden Guardians already was this past split, but are Golden Guardians necessarily going to be a championship contender going into, summer? Did they just have one nice playoff run? Who knows? I think it could be cool, but I really think most people expect Vulcan to be the most likely for one of these top two teams. One most interesting to me would be a potential return to Cloud9. Yes, Cloud9 has been very, very good without him over the past couple splits, winning titles, going to Worlds, and now heading to MSI after winning yet another title. But Vulcan and C9, they obviously go way back. Vulcan and C9 never really wanted to split up. Vulcan wanted to play with a different AD carry, didn't want to play with Sven. Cloud9 didn't want to go get him another AD carry. They didn't want to go sign Hansama or whoever Vulcan wanted to play with. So they decided to part ways, not really because either one of them wanted to. They both would have been willing to work together were they able to agree on, a roster and playing together and everything. But now that Cloud9 is really, really good, even without Vulcan, with Sven at support, most people would agree that Vulcan would be an upgrade over Sven's support, but that doesn't mean they would kick Sven, especially because Berserker likes playing with Sven, and we know they have such a great relationship and everything. And it just would seem kind of weird for C9 to do this at this point, but it would definitely, or not definitely, because you never know how pieces are going to fit together, but it would at least potentially make their team a lot better. This would be a very, very big story. I don't know. I would definitely keep this on the radar. Again, I think a move to Cloud9 seems way more likely into 2024, especially in a world where Berserker potentially, he said he only plans on spending a couple of years in NA. Now, hey, things change, but it is possible that if Berserker wants to leave to go back to Korea in 2024, that maybe Vulcan could return to C9 in 2024. I don't think it's all that likely at this point. To me, really, there's only one team that makes a ton of sense. That seems like FlyQuest. That seems like the name that everyone's throwing around. Vulcan and FlyQuest. Obviously, a top player being available, a top team really being kind of desperate for support. Obviously, Ayla didn't work out as well as they would have wanted. Winsome came in and was pretty good, but it's not like he's better than Vulcan. It's not like anyone's taking Winsome over Vulcan. And if you can pair up one of the best AD carries in the LCS with one of the best supports in the LCS, all of a sudden you could have a very, very special team. I think FlyQuest will definitely be reaching out, definitely getting in contact. And to me, when I start looking at all the teams, FlyQuest definitely makes the most sense for Summer Split. And if I had to bet, if I had to place a bet, if I had to, throw some money out there, I would assume that's where he's going, especially with Wooloo telling us that it's more likely than not that Vulcan is going to be staying in the LCS. But we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens. Whenever we get that news, you guys know it's going to come from me. You're going to be able to find it on this channel. But that's pretty much it for this video today, guys. Hopefully catch you in the next one. Until then, peace.